जी दोस्तों, नमस्ते, अभिवादन आप सभी को। जैसा कि आप देख रहे हैं आज मेरे साथ 2 बेहद बेहतरीन मेहमान हैं और मैं आपको इसलिए भी इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाह रहा हूँ इन दोनों लोगों से क्योंकि आप इनको हमारे शो में अब लगातार देखा करेंगे। ये हमारे परिवार के 2 नए सदस्य हैं। राजा मुनीब भाई, इनको आप पढ़ते रहते हैं न्यू एक्सप्रेस में और न्यू इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में फर्स्ट पोस्ट में आईबीएन नेटवर्क के लिए वो लिखते रहते हैं लगातार। तो मैं पर्सनली बहुत इंडेप्टेड हूँ, एहसानमंद हूँ आपका राजा भाई कि आप तशरीफ लाए और परिवार का हिस्सा बने। और ज़ाहिर है कि ये हमारी पहली इंटरेक्शन है यहाँ पर, लेकिन ये इंटरेक्शन आगे चलती रहेगी। राजीव मेरे छोटे भाई की तरह से हैं, इनका हिस्ट्री में बड़ा इंटरेस्ट है, मिलिट्री अफेयर्स में बड़ा इंटरेस्ट है और जियोपॉलिटिक्स पर अपना यू नो वो बड़ी मासूमियत से एक्सपर्ट अपने आप को नहीं कहते हैं, लेकिन अपना ओपिनियन ज़रूर रखते हैं। तो उनको भी आप अक्सर देखते रहते हैं। मैं आपको आप देखते रहेंगे उनको। मैं इसलिए इन दोनों को आपको इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहा हूँ, उसके पीछे एक रीज़न और भी है क्योंकि मैं बैकग्राउंड में जाने वाला हूँ और आप जानते हैं कि मैं भी अपनी किताब पर काम कर रहा हूँ। तो अभी मैं काम कर रहा हूँ तो मेरी शायद इंटरेक्शन कम हो, लेकिन मैं साथ में ज़रूर बना रहूँगा कहीं न कहीं बीच में। तो आप लोगों के अगर कोई सवाल होंगे तो आप आखिर में आप पूछते रहिएगा, हम उनको आखिर में सबको ले लेंगे। फिलहाल चलते हैं, स्टेज इज़ ऑल योर्स राजीव भाई, अब आप आगे चलें और डायरेक्टली आप राजा भाई को इंटरेक्ट करें, आप उनसे जो भी पूछना है पूछें। ऑल योर्स।
जी, धन्यवाद महेश भाई, आपका बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने मुझे ये मौका दिया इस चैनल पे आने का। राजा मुनीब भाई जी, आपका भी बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद। सलाम वालेकुम। मैं आपसे पहला प्रश्न ये
धन्यवाद
पूछना
आपका दोनों
चाहूँगा,
का।
जो अभी 2-3 दिन पहले पुंछ अटैक हुआ है, उसके बारे में।
देखिए, ये जो अटैक हुआ है ये कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ एक टेरर अटैक से जो 2021 से इस रीजन में हो रहा है, ठीक है।
जी,
और इसके पीछे जो प्राइमरी रीजन है वो ये है कि अगर आप पाकिस्तान को स्टडी करेंगे कि उन्होंने किस तरह कश्मीर में ऑपरेट किया है, ये एरिया जो था ये बड़ा फेमस था फॉर इन्फिल्ट्रेशन इन 90s टिल अबाउट अर्ली 2000s। जब यहाँ पर इंसर्जेंसी स्टार्ट हुई तो तभी इस एरिया में जो ये जो एरिया था यहाँ से बहुत पुश आता था अक्रॉस द लाइन। टेररिस्ट जो थे वो पुश होते थे एंड ओवर द इयर्स जितना हमने एलओसी को सिक्योर किया और जितनी हमारी डिप्लॉयमेंट हैवी रही और जो बाकी फैक्टर्स रहे वैली में जैसे कुपवारा था, उड़ी था, बाकी जो पॉइंट ऑफ इन्फिल्ट्रेशन थे वो उसको भी एक्सप्लॉइट करते थे। बट ओवर द इयर्स जब होम ग्रोन इंसर्जेंसी ज्यादा हो गई तो पुश कम हो गया और इंडियन आर्मी ने जो इफेक्टिवली ऑपरेशंस भी लॉन्च किए थे अलोंग एलओसी इन 2002 में एक ऑपरेशन हुआ था, 2003 में सर विनाश करके, जिसको ऑपरेशन हिलका का भी बोलते हैं। तो उसके बाद से जो है इनका जो पुश था वो कम हो गया। बट जब से एब्रोगेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 370 हुआ है तो टेररिज्म अगर आप देखेंगे कश्मीर वैली में खासतौर से इंसर्जेंसी और टेररिज्म की कमर टूट गई है। ना ही लोकल रिक्रूट बचे हैं, ना ही लोकल स्ट्रक्चर्स बचे हैं, ना ही कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बची हैं जो यहाँ पर एक्टिवली टेररिज्म को होम ग्रोन काइंड ऑफ बढ़ावा देते रहे या रिक्रूट करवाते रहे। ना वो आपने अगर देखा होगा कि 2014, 2016, 2018 तो एक बुरहान वानी का बड़ा सीन चला था, उसके बाद जाकिर मूसा का। तो कहीं ना कहीं जो लोकल लड़के थे वो फोर फ्रंट पे आ रहे थे और फोर फ्रंट पे टेररिज्म ज्वाइन कर रहे थे। बट एब्रोगेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 370 के बाद, डिसमेंटलिंग ऑफ टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के बाद लोकल्स इस चीज से पूरी तरह पीछे हट गए। सो पाकिस्तान के पास ऑप्शन क्या है? पाकिस्तान के पास ऑप्शन यही है कि वो फिर से एक बार इसको पुश करे फ्रॉम अक्रॉस एलओसी, अपने ट्रेन जो है इनके टेरर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस उन पर प्रेशर डाले, उनसे पुश करवाए और यहाँ पर इनसे किसी तरीके से टेररिज्म का जो साइकिल है वो ब्रेक ना हो, उसको चलाता रहे। उसके लिए इन्होंने ये स्टार्ट किया। और पुंछ रजौरी में इन्होंने बाकी जगह भी इन्फिल्ट्रेशन की कोशिश की है। इन्होंने उड़ी में की, इस साल लास्ट ईयर भी हुई थी, इस साल ज्यादा इस साल कोशिश की। कुपवारा में इन्होंने कोशिश की है, मच्छल सेक्टर में। बट वहां पे जो सिक्योरिटी ग्रिड है बहुत रोबस्ट है एंड दे वर नॉट सक्सेसफुल इन डूइंग दैट टू अ लार्ज एक्सटेंट। वहां पर कैजुअलिटीज भी इनकी काफी हुई थी। बट यहाँ पर जो है इसका जो टेरेन है वो बहुत बहुत हार्ड है। इट्स अ वेरी हार्डेस्ट टेरेन एंड इसमें बहुत नेचुरल पासेस आप कह सकते हैं जो एड करते हैं इन्फिल्ट्रेशन को। डेंस फॉरेस्ट है, फॉयलेज है, बहुत थिक है। तो इन्होंने इस चीज का फायदा उठा के ये हिट एंड रन टेक्निक बनाकर आकर अंदर इन्फिल्ट्रेट करके अकॉर्डिंग टू देयर ओन टाइमिंग पूरा मैप कर एरिया को and they have been able to do these attacks. So ये attacks जो हैं ये एक part and parcel of their strategy है to keep the terrorism going in Kashmir. और उसी को लेकर जो हम ये बार बार जो है ये अटैक्स देख रहे हैं. इसमें अनफॉर्चुनेट पार्ट यही है कि इनकी ट्रेनिंग इज बेटर देन व्हाट इट यूज्ड टू बी 10 years or 15 years ago. तो ये लगता है कि ये जो लड़के आ रहे हैं पार से, ये जितने भी आतंकवादी आ रहे हैं, दे आर स्पेशली ट्रेन्ड टू फाइट इन दीज काइंड ऑफ टेरेन्स and specially trained for these things, and they're using that to their advantage for now. But I don't think they will be able to hold this advantage for a very long time.
So राजा साहब, मेरा एक follow-up question है आपके लिए कि if this is the kind of pattern that we are witnessing in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Jammu with the Rajouri Poonch sector, अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 370 का जो एप्लीकेशन है उसको वैलिडेट कर दिया है, and it has instructed the central government to conduct elections in September 2024. What kind of impact or what kind of retaliation can we expect from a country that is completely on the brink? I'm referring to Pakistan.
That is another factor. See, they would not like to see a very peaceful kind of election happening in Jammu and Kashmir where people will try to come out and vote in large numbers. ये इसको disrupt करने की कोशिश तो करेंगे. But the thing is, operating on LOC in thick jungle is one thing. नीचे आके, in hinterland में आके to disrupt on the same kind of pace is something very different. और hinterland में आज की जो security है, जो security network है वो बहुत robust है. They don't survive here, because the human end, the tech end is very, very strong. The grid is extremely robust, extremely strong. The synergy between different forces like Jammu Kashmir Police, Army, CRP, extremely good. So that will be a different ball game. आप ये भी देखिए कि जो ही ये नीचे आते हैं, they suffer huge casualties. अभी कुलगाम में एक एनकाउंटर हुआ था, 5 of the लश्कर-ए-तोयबा men were gunned down there, right? तो उससे पहले हमारे कोकरनाग में भी एक एनकाउंटर हुआ, though we lost 2 officers and 3 jawans there, but we managed to kill all of them. उसमें लश्कर का एक कमांडर भी था, who was very wanted, commander of लश्कर-ए-तोयबा, who was operating in hinterland, वो मारा गया. तो hinterland की game different है और it will not be easy for them कि यहाँ आएंगे और यहाँ पर सेम काइंड ऑफ डिसरप्शन की कोशिश करेंगे. हाँ, कोशिशें जरूर करेंगे. They can trigger a blast in Jammu, they can trigger a blast in Kashmir, but I think the security grid is ready for the challenge and up to it to thwart any attempt from them to carry out such kind of subversive activities within the valley or within the region of Jammu. राजीव भाई, I can't, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
सर अब आपको आ रही है?
आ रही है.
Sorry, sir, I see kind of a dichotomy here when we do a comparison between the security forces grid and the terror attacks that are happening. It is, I'm not a military expert, but it's a very common sense that if the security grid is that robust, such kind of attacks should not happen. And अगर हम अभी भी ये सोच रहे हैं कि आगे कुछ ऐसा हो सकता है, तो I think it's quite clear that our military establishment needs to take care of it.
That's a good question, but I'll tell you the difference between operating in LOC. On LOC, you essentially have the Indian Army, which is primarily holding on the LOC, right? In the hinterland, you have all the security forces, so you're a force multiplier. You have Jammu and Kashmir Police, you have CRPF, you have Indian Army, right? So you have a complete force multiplier operating in the hinterland. The synergy is very good. LOC pe, yes, police is there on the background for for intelligence sharing and all that, but primarily it is the job of only the Indian Army. Then the terrain also matters, right? You are fighting an enemy which is in jungles, which is in caves, as compared to fighting a man who will be spotted from a mile away, because यहाँ पे जो deployment होती है वो बहुत robust है. Police की deployment है, CRPF की deployment है, and it's a 24/7 deployment. Then you have CCTV cameras which are monitoring each and every nook and lane of Kashmir or of Jammu. So to pick up movements is much easier than what we see on the LOC. LOC is a different ball game altogether. तो इसको कॉन्फ्लेट नहीं हम कर सकते या इसमें डाइकोटमी अगर बोलें, I don't think that actually is a dichotomy. These are entirely two different terrains of fighting with two different terrains, two different areas of expertise and two different areas of operational handling, I would say. So इसका handling भी जो है operationally different होता है.
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। इसके अलावा मेरे पास एक और सवाल अभी मुझसे आपसे आपकी जो नॉलेज आपने शेयर करी तो मुझे याद आया। हमने एक चीज नोटिस करी जब ये लाइव टेलीविजन पे इनका एनकाउंटर के बाद जो विजुअल्स चल रहे थे कि उस सेक्टर के अंदर चेतक हेलीकॉप्टर चल रहे हैं। तो ये हम लोग ने अपैचीज वगैरह जो हम खरीद रहे हैं, अपैचीज चलिए चिनूक्स तो अटैक चॉपर्स नहीं है, बट अपैचीज हैं, ध्रुव्स हैं, प्रचंड हैं, तो ये हमारे सिर्फ 26 जनवरी की परेड के लिए बने हैं या जहां पे इनको रिक्वायरमेंट है वहां पे इनको यूज करने की जरूरत है कि नहीं? बिकॉज चेतक तो खाली आपका रिकवरी के लिए आता है।
One is for recovery, two is for logistics, for people dropping on logistics up there. When you talk about using helicopter gunships, you are essentially then, escalating a level. And that level can never be escalated unless and until the presence of enemy is real and clear. Okay. So in search operations, what is Apache going to do? It is not going to search it for you, right? It is the man on the ground who is going to, once the contact is established, or a gunfight ensues where आपको लगता है कि नहीं हमारा जो human resource है, it is not sufficient enough, then you can press on additional armory or military equipment to flush them out. But in this kind of thing, जहाँ पर it's a shoot and scoot kind of an operation, using an Apache or anything doesn't make sense because essentially आप उसको use किस पे करो? Unless and until आपने pinpoint नहीं किया है, pin down नहीं किया है, you are not holding out an encounter or you're not holding them out or flushing them out. Yeah. So Chetak is basically used for logistics, for is also used for dropping in, for recovery of injured or something like that. So it's more of a kind of a logistic, you can say a logistic war horse, and that is essentially what it is used in this region for. It is not used for actively engaging. It is not used for taking out insurgents. That doesn't happen. So, इसलिए अगर जो आपने वो देखे होंगे images, because that time there were casualties, right? So obviously the cameras will catch up because they are trying to evacuate the injured and the dead. They also, you have the GOC moving up. You have senior military officials moving up to the operational area, so they carry them as well. So इनका जो चिनुक का काम है, that is basically logistical work, and that is what was being carried out. It had nothing to do with aggression of the operation at all.
So we understand that it's all like logistics and rearmament and the whole shebang. My point being, where are our drones? The drones that we so popularly harp on about, हमने ये खरीदा, वो खरीदा, ये किया, वो किया, अगर आपके ड्रोन्स आपके हॉटेस्ट एरिया के अंदर एक्टिव नहीं हैं, आपने बोला that you need boot on the ground to identify the enemy. Why do you need the boot on the ground when you have technology overhead at 30,000 feet which can thermally identify the enemy and then relay that data to an Apache helicopter or a gunship which can eliminate the threat?
This is precisely why US lost the war in Afghanistan. This is precisely the reason why US Army got entangled for 20 years and lost the war in Afghanistan. Too much over-dependency on technology, thinking that drones are going to suffice for human eye. In these kind of terrains, no drones work, right? Once you get into a cave or a crevice, it is not going to happen. If you read the accounts of Talibanis and how they used to escape these drones, they would just simply get under a rock. What will a drone do there? It won't be able to do anything, right? So human eye is very, very...
Drones can surveil the entire this fenced area, correct?
There is no fenced area. So this is another myth that the entire area is fenced. The entire area cannot be fenced because the terrain is such and there are gaps. And these gaps are covered with crevices, these gaps are covered with jungles, these gaps are covered with so thick foliage that you won't be able to pick up anybody from a distance of 10 meters. That is how thick it is at some places along the LOC, right? We do have eye to eye eyeball contact on LOC on many posts, but then there are gaps also, and these gaps are used. So talking about using drones and technology is one thing, but understanding how they can be used and where they can be used is another thing. Because obviously, we haven't bought these things to play around with them. We have bought them to use in active operations and war. But then where is the usage? That is where you need to push them in. You cannot push them in areas where it is going to be detrimental for you. If you use excessively drones in this area, you essentially will not be able to see anything till they will come to the last village or will drop down to the last, landing. And then you will blame कि ये कहाँ से आ गए, हमने तो technology use की थी, हमको तो कुछ दिखा नहीं. Also, if you want to, over dependence on technology is very bad. Look at Hamas. Look at what Israel had to pay in terms of, overly dependent on complete technology. They had those camera-mounted machine guns which would operate remotely and all those things. Everything failed, right? So technology, yes, it aids you, but it cannot be your primary action tool. It can be your very good aiding tool, but never a primary action.
But can technology be a defensive, like a defensive tool to protect our men in uniform from being martyred every single day?
No, it can be. Absolutely. It can be. But then what do you do with shoot and scoot, these things?
Operation.
Even in, Americans suffered the most of the casualties either with IEDs or shoot and scoot attacks. Despite having their convoys covered with, drones, watching them real time, they were still not able to stop it. So these kind of attacks, are stopped usually by human intervention and human deployment. Now, what they have done is they have pushed one more brigade to, reinforce their already the men on the LOC and to plug the gaps. I think that is something which is better than waiting on a drone to give you the surveillance image, because essentially, if he's hiding in foliage, you will not be able to pick him up. आप नहीं उठा पाओ.
Sir, wonderful. Thank you for just clearing this, fog out of my mind. Just I'm going to lead up into this response of yours with a very pertinent question जो मेरे दिमाग में बहुत टाइम से चल रहा है, and I haven't been able to find an answer to it. Our response has been reactive for decades against terror attacks. Everyone knows that this nonsense, this monster of terror comes from Rawalpindi GHQ and Apara ISI. Now, my only question is that do you think it will be a sound move to destroy a limited but key Pakistani military infrastructure with long-range conventional missile attacks, which sends a strong message to Pakistan? I'm not going nuclear. ठीक है ना, हम एटम की बात नहीं करेंगे जो पाकिस्तानी पागल हो जाते हैं उसके बाद.
No, but what you are saying is essentially attacking key infra-military structure of a conventional army, right? You think it is going to be limited, but ladder of escalation is never in your control. The Pakistanis will respond. If you think the Pakistanis won't respond, they will.
What kind of response do you expect from Pakistan? Because they are in a doldrum. Their economy is collapsing.
Multitude of response. They can open a war front on Jammu and Kashmir. They can open a war front on any other sector. They can use their air force. They can use their whatever limited navy they have. Their response will be high, right? And then you are essentially talking about war. The question is, does India want to go to war? Is this the time of India to grow economically and be an economic might, or get itself entangled into a war with a nation which is already losing, whose economy is already down? They will drag you down with, to your economy as well in case of a war, which we really don't want. So I don't think that is a response. But let me tell you something, most of the times we think our reaction is very reactive, but that is not the case. I'll tell you something very limited. In many instances, it is proactive as well. There are strikes which happen limited within LOC to deter them from crossing over or taking them out. There have been instances in Pakistan where key, LET and JASH and other organizations' heads have been taken out, or key men have been taken out. So it's a asymmetrical warfare, and you have to fight it asymmetrically. The only thing is, when we conduct an operation, you don't hear about it in media, and that is very right. You will never hear about
Yeah.
it. But it's not that we are
Yeah.
always reactive. We are proactive as well. The proactive works also happens, but it happens behind a screen, so nobody's able to see it. Had it not been proactive, then the threat would have been multi-fact. बहुत
Yeah.
ज्यादा हो.
अभी आपने बोला कि do you go do we want to go to a war when India is progressing so well in economy and on the global stage? My only reaction to and my only follow-up question to it is, ठीक है, हमें वॉर नहीं करनी, हमें बिल्कुल नहीं करनी, हमें जंग नहीं चाहिए. अगर हम वहां हिट करेंगे तो वहां से वापस रिस्पॉन्स आएगा, गारंटीड है. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर, हम इस 1+1 का जो इक्वेशन लेके हम चल रहे हैं, उसका नुकसान हमारे जवान भर रहे हैं, हर रोज हमारे जवान भर रहे हैं. Then something has to happen. Something has to happen. India cannot be so docile.
No, we are not docile. Don't mistake a response, a major response of your timing as being docile, right? The Indian army is not docile from 2014. They are very aggressive, and they put the fear in the heart of the enemy across the border. That is for sure. Okay. But you have to understand, we have been dealing with a problem called Pakistan, and we're dealing with terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir for many decades now, right? Yes,
but
every soldier, of course they're interrelated. But you also have to see that, it is sad that we do lose soldiers, and, every life matters to us, right? But if you look at the response of Pakistanis, what was in the 90s, in the 2000s, the kind of casualties we used to take then versus the casualties we are taking now, it has reduced. We have deterred them for a very, very long time, right? And this whole thing is on its last leg. Maybe Pakistan will be able to, sustain it for another 2 years, because their own problems are so many in their own areas. For with TPP, they have so much issues which is going to escalate next year. I think they would not have the capacity and the capability to, even push these men towards this side. They would require these men to protect them. There could be a scenario of that sort of. Or they could completely lose control over these organizations, and these organizations start imploding within Pakistan, right? With the utopia of creating a Islamic rule. So there are many combinations and factors when you're dealing with terrorism. And unfortunate that we take losses, but then, these are measured losses, and response is always given. And the response in this, incident will also come. Albeit it won't come, immediately, but it will come. There will be a response.
Sir, let's hope so. We have lost.
मुझे ये भी लगता है राजा भाई, आपने जो अभी इशारा किया, और मुझे वो एक मेजर प्रॉब्लम लगती है with elections around in Pakistan, if at all that happens on 8th February. I mean, for the sake of Pakistan, I would say let's assume they do. I'm still a little doubtful the way things are going, but let's assume even if they happen, and a government comes into picture, how do you see the scenario developing in the region? I know I'm going a little out of the subject that we are talking about right now, but I know your expertise. I'm just taking advantage of it for my benefit in terms of knowledge that I gained from you. And that would be, how do you see the scenario developing? Election, firstly, आपको क्या लगता है कि would it be taking place as it is going? I also see the establishment and the judiciary and establishment kind of coming almost face to face, with Peshawar High Court going almost rogue the way it is right now. Chief Justice is out of country at the moment. How do you see it is developing? And then this Baloch movement, TTP coming up. Last weeks they were talking with TTP along with Afghan Taliban in Qatar, and nothing has come. They were asking for Faz to join in. The TTP wanted to Faz to join in, and obviously that was not possible. So, how do you see the scenario kind of developing up in the regional politics?
See, it's tough.
And Raja Saab, just before you answer, just adding a point to Mahesh Bhai, please reflect upon this inclusion of Tara Saeed, हाफिज सईद का जो बेटा है, वो भी पॉलिटिक्स में आके उसने भी अपना वो एक पार्टी ज्वाइन बना के उसमें आ गया.
नॉट ओनली वन, वो तो कई सारे हैं, वो अकेला नहीं है.
साद रिजवी, आई एम वेटिंग नाउ फॉर साद रिजवी टू गो एंड डू दिस.
And Saad Rizvi sitting with Baloch protesters yesterday.
हाँ,
7 Baloch
so
was yesterday with them.
So they're playing a very interesting game inside these Maulvis. See, जो
Yeah.
आपने बोला ना पाकिस्तान का क्या है, I am very skeptical कि election होगा.
Same
And
here.
reason behind it is you see suddenly after the US visit of Asim Munir, right? They have gone extremely soft on Imran. पहले तो उसको बेल दे दी, right? फिर उसका वो halt कर दिया Pfeiffer case का. So these are signals which tell you that they are under tremendous pressure from different lobbies to accommodate one or the other. Now Imran is known as a man for Turkey, the man for the the Chinese were not very happy with him, but obviously the Turkish, Iranian, the Muslim Brotherhood see Imran Khan as their man, right? And given the kind of leverage they have right now, they would try to bring Imran back. For them, Imran is more important than Nawaz or somebody else. Nawaz they don't see as a good ally. So Pakistani army will also be in a dilemma कि election करें तो करें क्या, क्योंकि इमरान की popularity बहुत ज्यादा है, right? उनको already ये problem है कि नवाज को हम वापस तो ले आए हैं, और अगर ये नहीं जीता तब क्या होगा? So they were trying to put all this IPP जो नई पार्टी बनाई थी इमरान खान के, वो जो निकले थे उनको लेकर नई पार्टी, they were thinking of hoping a coalition somewhere कि चलो एक मिली-जुली सरकार है जो वो चलाते हैं वैसे चलाएंगे. But obviously पाकिस्तानी गवर्नमेंट का कोई भी इन्फ्लुएंस जो है वो पाकिस्तानी आर्मी पे कभी नहीं रहा, राइट? एंड अगर हम ये सोचेंगे कि इस्लामाबाद में सरकार बदल जाएगी और कोई नया चीफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर आ जाएगा और उससे जो है इंडिया पाकिस्तान रिलेशंस जो है वो चेंज हो जाएंगे एंड दिस थिंग विल स्टॉप, इट विल नेवर हैपन. It is the Pakistani army which controls everything, and it is the Pakistani army which decides when to let the foot on and when to let the foot off the escalator, accelerator. So it is entirely onto Pakistani army. The elections are not, Pakistani chief prime minister is not somebody who can call the shots. वो कभी होगा नहीं. He is subservient to the army. Now coming to your question on this guy Talha Saeed pe. See, Pakistan always had this of extremist fighting elections. So it is not as a surprise. You had Saad Rizvi, Khadim Hussain Rizvi ne start kiya TLP ko, Saad Rizvi he will try to do this. So Pakistani establishment also knows कि अगर मुझे वोट काटना है, they use them as vote cutting machines also. ये 4% काटे, 5% काटे, 6% काटे. Last time they took about 6%.
Sir, can I cut in for a second, please, if you don't mind?
Sure.
आपने बोला कि साद रिजवी और उसका बेटा भी आया था, राइट?
बट साद रिजवी उसका बाप था, खादिम हुसैन रिजवी
उसका बाप, सॉरी, साद रिजवी उसका बाप जो था वो जब आए थे एज टीएलपी था, राइट? टेरर के बैक पाकिस्तान. They were not a proscribed organization, terror organization by the United Nations and the US. But
no, that is not the point.
The point is,
he is not a designate. See, that is the point. The point is, he is not fighting it in Milli Muslim League के नाम से नहीं लड़ रहा, या लश्कर तोयबा के नाम से नहीं लड़ रहा. उन्होंने एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी बनाई है, वही मैं बता रहा हूँ. टीएलपी जो है वो वैसे नहीं लड़ती. टीएलपी itself is a militant organization in Pakistan, declared militant organization. But despite that, they still put up their candidates, right? So इन सब के जो है एक सूडो पार्टी रहती है, सूडो कैंडिडेट्स रहते हैं जहां ये कंटेस्ट कराते हैं. जमात इस्लामी को अगर आप पाकिस्तान में देखेंगे, हालांकि उनको वोट ज्यादा नहीं आता, बट दे आल्सो डू इट. जमात इज एन एक्टिव सपोर्टर ऑफ लश्कर-ए-तोयबा, राइट? तो आपको इस नेक्सस है पाकिस्तान में, एक तरफ टेरर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का, और देन all these terror organizations in Pakistan have extended political arms. चाहे वो NGOs के नाम से चलाते हैं ये, चाहे वो ये मदरसों के नाम से चलाते हैं, इनका एक पॉलिटिकल क्लाउड रहता है, एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी रहती है जो इन चीजों से अलग रहती है, इन अ सेंस की ऑन पेपर अलग रहती है, and they use that for gaining legitimacy in Pakistan. And Pakistan also uses the same thing. You see, they are shunning the weapons and they're coming into mainstream, and we are going, if they come to mainstream, we'll accommodate them. Nothing better than that, right? So एक eyewash होता है ग्लोब के लिए. And it's a pretty typical textbook thing. It is not the first time he's fighting. They have been fighting for a very long time. One or the other. So इस बार पाकिस्तान में chaos बहुत है, political vacuum बहुत है, right? और radicalization जो है, that has literally reached sky high. So these organizations will be seeing a very good opportunity for somebody like Talha to actually win and come into the Pakistani Senate. Now imagine Talha Said sitting in Pakistani side. He
Very
is
true,
an
very
equivalent
true.
of Haqqani sitting in Afghanistan in the government. So they're trying to draw the parallel. They're trying to draw. They're actually trying to create a power balance and try to draw a parallel onto it. That is what the Pakistanis essentially are trying to do with the Taliban. So it's a must-win game for them. We might be very common in that part of the world.
Before we end the show, राजा भाई, there is हमारे एक रेगुलर व्यूअर हैं, यंग लड़के हैं और कॉम्पिटिशन्स की तैयारी कर रहे हैं, आकाश, और उनका ये सवाल है, आप देखेंगे अपनी स्क्रीन पे मैं डाल रहा हूँ, ये मुझे मालूम नहीं है ऑपरेशन क्या है, but probably you might be knowing about it.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. In 2002, there was intel कि इस belt में there was a particular hill called Hill Kaka, LOC के आसपास. तो यहाँ पर intel था कि there are more than 150 infiltrators who have come from across the border, and they have, you know, sort of वो वहाँ पे refuge लेकर बैठे, उन्होंने fortifications की है, and a lot of nonsense was going on in that area. So Indian Army ने एक operation launch किया था, Operation Sarpinash करके, to flush these guys out. And it was months-long operation. जिसमें they were able to kill a minimum of 47 का number है, which is a very conservative number. 47 of them were dead. Though अगर आप Google करेंगे, you'll find higher numbers also. कहीं पे 65 है, कहीं पे 100 plus भी लिखा हुआ है. But the actual number is around 47 to 50. So they were killed and they were pushed back. The rest of them went across the LOC back to the LOC, right? So that is what I was talking about कि जब इन्होंने Sarpinash launch किया था, उसके बाद से जो था कि ये एरिया बड़ा क्वाइट हो गया था, क्योंकि you know once your loopholes are picked up, तो उसके बाद आप जब गैप बंद कर दीजिए तो फिर नहीं आते हैं, राइट? तो फिर इनको नया रास्ता ढूंढना पड़ता है, उसमें टाइम लगता है. एंड सो Sarpinash 2 का ये है कि अगर जब तक उसके लिए आपके पास नंबर्स होने चाहिए. If the numbers are infiltration numbers are like 30, 40, 40, 50, 60, जो कि है नहीं at the present moment. The number is given between 20 and 25. You know, that is what the estimated numbers are. और उसमें से भी ये नहीं पता कि how many are staying on this side or some are actually going back towards crossing to LOC and going back towards POG. So if the numbers are huge, they will launch an operation of that scale. But an operation is coming which will be more concentrated on areas where they will have the highest probability of hiding. So maybe Sarpinash 2 जो होगा वो maybe एक shorter भी हो सकता है, एक छोटा ऑपरेशन भी हो सकता है, concise भी हो सकता है, और जरूरी नहीं है कि उस large scale पर वो ऑपरेशन हो सकता है. उसका स्केल जो है वो छोटा है, but उसकी जो efficiency है that will be more or less the same. So that is when what I was telling you, that the response is going to come, not immediately, but it will come. So that is what the most probable scenario is. वक्त वही लग रहा है, not a full scale large operation नहीं.
Wonderful. It was great talking about the whole subject, and this in the background of Rajouri Punch का जो भी हमला हुआ, terror attack हुआ, और as I said, हम लोग अभी towards evening दोबारा से बात करेंगे भाईजान, और वो बात होगी हमारी इजराइल फलस्तीन वाले मसले पर. अभी के लिए आपके आने के लिए, आपकी आमद का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया राजा भाई, और you know, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you Rajiv भाई.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. Pleasure talking to you both. Thank you.
Thank you.